Alright, hey guys, this is going to be a pre-G6 video, and I'm just going to very briefly discuss my thoughts on this attack I'm about to initiate. So, just to set some of the groundwork, situation was that I had a pretty strong Italian can opener in East Poland. There was an infantry there, supported by 2 armors and 2 Italian fighters. That's a can opener that it's a tough one because you can't just put blockers up as the Russian player in these territories outside of Russia. You have to do something fairly substantial. And Corporal Clegg, responded with something substantial. He put basically equivalent of 8 two defenders, a mix of British and Russian forces in these 2 territories. So I can't just step in and step out like I would with swapping territories with a blocker. That's not going to happen here. And I can't consolidate in East Ukraine because he put the huge Russian army, his balance of his Russian army is down here in the Caucasus. So what that leaves me with is a strafe attack, which is something I find is I very rarely do these strafe attacks, and I find that they're very rarely done, but I do know what it is and ostensibly how to use it, at least anyway. So what it is a single round, usually, of combat where the intent of the attacker is not to take over the territory, but to inflict more casualties than they receive. So it's very important not to you can't really use a battle calculator here, and you need to calculate approximate hits on 1 round of combat. So I've kind of approximated this to, I'd like to get 5 hits here in the East Ukraine fight, and I'd like to get 6 hits up here. So I'm going to do I'm doing 2 strafe attacks between my armies here. I'm going for 2 territories, and I wanted to kill off a total of 11 pieces, and between 16 two defenders I expect to take 5 hits. So this is an exchange rate at greater than 2 to 1. Given that the whole board currently has economic parity and has been for the last 2 whole turns, which is why I haven't really made any videos, nothing crazy interesting to me has happened since the sinking of the Baltic fleet, but that's fairly normal. After the first couple of rounds, things kind of plane out for a little while, and both sides are jockeying for a superior position. But anyway, I think this is a good way for the Germans to get ahead. It's not a guaranteed way. Nothing's guaranteed when you're throwing dice, but the amount of dice we're going to be throwing should take the edge off the bell curve. It should be fairly flat, not so sharp. So there is a relative, we can expect certain results as opposed to if we were just rolling a couple of dice, 2 or 3. We're going to be throwing like 8, 10, 12, 13, right? In one case, 14 dice. So anyway, that helps with the bell curve. Okay, so how am I going to execute this? Well, I'm going to be taking advantage of retreat rules, blitz rules, possibly non-combat into recently captured territory rules. These are little rules that seem to be boring when you read them in the rule book, but can do really nasty things. Potentially. This could just be a total flop, but I do want to plant a flag here and say I have reasonable expectations for this strike, and there's a decent possibility of it doing some pretty severe damage to my opponent. But anyway, let's go into the details. I want to do these attacks, and then I want everybody to consolidate in East Poland. Now, how the heck do you expect to attack out of Ukraine into East Ukraine and then expect to drive into East Poland? That makes no sense. Well, it does if you understand the rules, and the rules are this is for every version of Axis and Allies all the way back to the beginning in 1984, the Milton Bradley edition. I'm just going to read straight from the manual on page 19 in the anniversary rulebook that when you retreat to a single adjacent friendly space from or through which that's the key word, from or through which at least one attacking land or sea unit moved. So I can't use air units, but a land unit from eastern Ukraine, from Ukraine, can, in this case a tank, can drive into East Poland, through East Poland, I should say, and that's the key word, remember, through, and then turn into the East Ukraine. This then opens the door of retreat for any forces in East Ukraine to run away after the first round of combat into East Ukraine. So we can do an attack and still move into East Poland. I've geared it up to do really 1 round of combat where I can reasonably expect 5 hits, reasonably expect 2, probably 3 hits on the rebound, and then escape to East Poland. So I'll commit 1 tank in the Blitz fashion, all 4 fighters, a bomber off screen in France, and there's a reason I'm sending all the Air Force in here, which I'll get into in a moment, 2 artilleries, and 5 infantries. That was the way I did it. And why did I pick those forces? Well, that gets me to exactly 30 attack points. So a bomber plus 4 3 attackers plus 5 1 attackers, 3 artilleries, and then of course promoting some of those infantry gets me to exactly 30 points on the score on the attack card, if you want to call it that. So if you could just divide that number by 6 because there's 6 sides to a dice, and then you get 5, and that's where I'm getting 5 kills. So I can reasonably expect 5 kills. If I go up or over by 1, okay, no big deal. I just don't want to kill everything, and I'd like to get more hits than I lose. But 5 is greater than the 3 maximum that we expect on the defensive shot, so it seems like a solid move, and then we retreat. This is mostly just to help weaken the southern flank, because the main push comes up here, where I might actually take his territory depending on what happens down here and depending how well this goes up here. I'm going to send in 11 tanks and 3 infantry. That's 36 points worth of attack because I want to do 6 hits before retreating. And but there really is kind of a strong probability that I'm going to take and hold this territory, unless I don't know what the unless is, and I should probably get that worked out before I roll. But the intent, I might just commit the whole force. I don't know. I don't like the idea of it. If I'm going to roll, if I totally botch everything, I don't want to have my whole army stuck up there. But anyway, I should get 6 hits, and then I can retreat to safety. But if things go really well, this will be down to just a 3-unit force in the East Ukraine, and if he rolls if he gets only 2 hits and I wipe him out, let's just say that I roll hot, get all 8, and he only kills off 1 or 2 of my infantry, then I can reinforce in the non-combat phase. I can reinforce with all the loose tanks that I didn't commit, all the loose infantry I didn't commit into here, and the British they are in a state that's too weak to knock this, and then that would put the Allies in a pretty significant bind. The Russian army would have to come up, and the British would just have to reinforce here or risk being overrun. I'm not sure, but anyway, the idea is to strafe and fall back. So I'm expecting to net probably 11 kills thereabouts, and I'm expecting to lose about 5 infantries. So a mix of British and Russian pieces, and British artillery and infantry too. So it should be pretty good, and I'm hoping it's designed to sort of give me the edge on the Eastern Front from here on. I don't know. It could also just be a big nothing. It could also backfire, but just for fun, because it's not that hard to do. You're just throwing some dice. You're just doing 1 round of combat apiece in each territory. So I threw a bunch of them just to kind of test it, make sure the math worked out, and it seems like it's pretty good. I even have a contingency for Eastern Ukraine. If this thing goes belly up, it actually doesn't matter, and this is where the built-in insurance policy is. Me using 5 air units helps me shield my ground forces. So I'm just using 5 infantry, 2 artillery, and a tank, and let's just say I totally get massacred and I lose all but 1 or even all of my ground forces. Well, still, because it's 100% chance of success on the battle calculator, it still will mean probably the entire destruction of this force, or near total destruction, hopefully. And I can just retreat my planes and then move whatever I didn't move in the non-combat phase out of Ukraine into East Poland. So things can go wrong, but I've really tried to kind of cater to the things going wrong as much as I could. My piece selection is in, the math is in, everything's registered, and again, not using a battle calculator. There's no battle calculator. Battle calculator can't help with this. It's just a strafe. Battle calculators don't do strafe attacks. So, okay, it's been a fun game, and hopefully this gives me the edge. We'll see.